Yo guys, I'm YouTube back in the video, and today I'm going to be talking about why the Chicago Bulls were destined to fail from the beginning of the season. Going into this season, the Bulls were seen as supposed to be a good high-level playoff team to even maybe a dark horse contending level team. And for the most part, during the regular season, the Bulls were able to keep those expectations kind of a realistic possibility. Now, obviously, we know what just happened to them in the first round, where they lost in 5 games to the Milwaukee Bucks, and that was a very disappointing way to end their season. But overall in the regular season, they did keep these expectations. But I'm going to get into a few reasons later on this video why I think the Chicago Bulls from day one were pretty much doomed to not be a legit finals contender from the start of the season. And if that does sound interesting to you, please stick around and watch the video, because I'll be getting to all that very soon. And if you do like the video point, hit the like button and subscribe button. It would mean the absolute world to me. But without further ado, without running too much, let's get right into this video. So like I said a little bit earlier, the Chicago Bulls were supposed to be a dark horse level contending team with the addition of Demar Derozan, Lonzo Ball in the offseason. That would give them a starting 5 of Lonzo Ball, Zach LaVine, Demar Derozan, Patrick Williams, and Nikola Vucevic. Now, Patrick Williams would go down with an injury very early on, and that is not something that they can control or that anyone could see coming, obviously. And then obviously the same thing with Lonzo Ball. Lonzo Ball got hurt a little bit later down in the season, and he would also go out for the rest of this season. So those injuries you can't really help, but they did contribute massively to the first reason I have for why they were doomed from the start. And that was the fact that they played literally zero defense. The Bulls were ranked the 23rd worst defensive team when it came to defensive efficiency last year, and that's not hard to see why if you look at the players that were injured. Lonzo Ball, by far one of the better perimeter defenders on this team, he got hurt. Patrick Williams, he got hurt, and then Alex Caruso also was hurt for the majority of the season. The only one of their elite defenders that they had was rookie Ayo Dosunmu, and Ayo Dosunmu, due to his offensive struggles, was not able to get a lot of extended minutes with the Chicago Bulls, especially when it came around to playoff time. Now, he still played, but he's not able to play in crunch time when defense matters the most. So their defense struggled a ton due to these injuries. But even if those injuries weren't there, this team would still struggle immensely, because as we saw, Patrick Williams and Alex Caruso were able to play for the majority of the playoff series against the Milwaukee Bucks in the first round. But despite even having both of those good defenders back on their team, they still gave up 109 points per game, and they let their opponent shoot 47% from the field and 38% from the three-point line. So they were giving up huge percentage, very high percentages, and a lot of points every game, even though they got some of their best defenders back. And then if you compare that to their percentages on the series, where they averaged 40% from field and 28% from the three-point line, those percentages that they were able to give up because of their defense look very bad, especially for a team that so heavily relies on their offense like the Chicago Bulls did. That is the biggest downfall, because if you look at it, all the contending level teams in the past are at least decent at both sides of the ball. But the Chicago Bulls went all in on offense, and their defense has struggled immensely, which did ultimately lead to their downfall, because the Milwaukee Bucks were able to get whatever they wanted. Now, Giannis is going to beat whoever he plays. Like, not beat, but he's going to get his. Like, he is going to score 20 plus points every night, no matter what, because he is Giannis, and that's just how good he is. But they were still able to give up big numbers to Jrue Holiday and even to other role players, because even when Chris Middleton went down, the Milwaukee Bucks were still able to score a lot of points, and that was a very big deal, as if their offense wasn't clicking, they ended up getting blown out every time, because that lack of defense puts so much pressure on your offensive-minded players that they have to play good, that it could eventually lead to very big drop-offs in your winning percentages and things like that. Because if your offensive players are in a slump, or they're just not playing good, or the defense is making them struggle, well, that is a huge red flag for any team, because once it gets around playoff time, those teams are now able to game plan even more and even harder against your star level offensive players, which makes it even harder for them to score. And when your defense isn't up to par with the other team, it's going to be very hard to win if you solely rely on on your offensive game. So I think that was a huge reason to why they were doomed to start from the start. I mean, because they're zero defense. Winning with no defense is very hard. That's why the saying is defense wins championships. Now, obviously, being good at both sides wins championships, but you damn sure have to be better than the 23rd worst defensive team in the entire NBA if you have ambitions past the first round, especially when it comes to the NBA playoffs. Now, my second reason is going to be due to their over-reliance on Demar Derozan to play at an elite level. Now, throughout the entire regular season, basically, Demar Derozan was playing at a borderline MVP level. He was on a lot of people's MVP ladders and was in a lot of people's top 5 when it came to the MVP ladders. Now, although he probably was never going to ever win that trophy, no matter how good he played this season, he was going to be at least in the running for it, and he was going to be in the race, which is a huge upgrade from anything that DeMar has really ever done. He's always been a great player, but he's never been at this superstar, megastar level that he played at this season. And DeMar DeRozan was a huge part of why this team was so successful in the regular season, and that's why they were so good, because you have Zach LaVine, who's an unbelievable scorer. Now you pair him with DeMar DeRozan, who's playing at an MVP level, especially on the offensive end. That makes it very, very hard to stop him. And if you look at this series, it shows how much they relied on DeMar DeRozan and how that ended up being their downfall. As in the one game of this series that the Chicago Bulls were able to win, which ended up being the second game of the series, that saw DeMar DeRozan drop 41 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists, 1 steal, and 2 blocks, and they played very, very good and only won by 4 points. So that shows how much they needed DeMar DeRozan to play good, because if you look at it, the next 3 games after that, DeMar DeRozan only averaged 15 points per game, 1 steal per game, 4 assists per game, 4 rebounds per game on 43% shooting from the field, and a whopping 0% shooting from the 3-point line, which, by the way, he ended up shooting 0% from the 3-point line for the entire series, with games 1 and 2 also included. So, I mean, when he's shooting that bad from the arc, and he's not shooting that efficient from the field, and then he's also just not scoring nearly as much as he was in the regular season, that complete reliance on DeMar DeRozan playing good for you to be able to win games looks very, very bad on him, and it makes it very, very hard for the Bulls to win due to how much they relied on DeMar DeRozan. So what I'm really trying to say is when DeMar DeRozan struggled, the Chicago Bulls were also going to struggle. Like, there was almost no in between. And then if you even look at it in those last 3 games, in games 3 and game 5, DeMar DeRozan only scored 11 points. And if you compare that to what his regular season averages were of 28 points per game, 5 rebounds per game, 5 assists per game on 50% shooting from the field and 35% shooting from the 3-point line, there was a very significant drop-off from what he did in the playoffs, and that is not a good look on DeMar. Now, I'm not saying DeMar is a bad player or anything like that in any shape or form. By saying that, I'm just pointing out that over-reliance on DeMar DeRozan, that they had to score the ball and be that guy, was a huge, huge part of their downfall, because of how much he did struggle in the first round and in some of his games this series. And it's not a coincidence that in the one game DeMar DeRozan went off, that is the one game they were able to win. And because in a lot of the games that DeMar DeRozan didn't even play good at all in and did not look like himself at all, the Chicago Bulls ended up struggling and probably losing those games by a lot of points. And that is just a huge, huge sign that the Bulls need to not change anything in their starting lineup, but just get better role players that can help score the ball a little bit more. Now, obviously, if you have someone like Lonzo who gives you about 12 to 15 to maybe 20 points any given night, that would help the scoring woes a little bit, but you need a guy off your bench who's going to be an absolute bucket for you and that can just go out and score and help someone like Zach LaVine, Nikola Vucevic, and DeMar DeRozan if one of them are having a bad night. So that would go a very long way if they had someone like that coming off their bench. But like I said, if they were fully healthy as well, this team would have been a little bit better and not relied on DeMar DeRozan as much. But I still think they need to add 1 or 2 guys on their bench that can just go out and get a bucket if the Bulls need them to. And now for the final thing I want to get into, it's not really like why they were doomed from the start, but if someone didn't think that they were doomed from the start, you could have found out they were doomed the second their playoff matchup was set with the Milwaukee Bucks. The reason I say this is because the Bucks are just an awful mismatch for the Chicago Bulls. The Bulls like I said, one of the worst defenses, but one of the best offenses, while the Milwaukee Bucks are the 13th best defense with Jrue Holiday, one of the best perimeter defenders in the entire NBA, hands down, then Giannis, who's also an amazing defender when he needs to be. That was going to be a very hard matchup to overcome when you're playing against also the Milwaukee Bucks, who have a great offense. So not only can the Milwaukee Bucks match the Chicago Bulls when it comes to offense, they can also play elite defense when they have to. Jrue Holiday is, like I said, one of the best perimeter defenders in the NBA, and when your two best scorers are Zach LaVine and Demar Derozan, two perimeter players, it is going to be a huge challenge, damn near impossible to beat a team like that when you're just mismatched that poorly. So like I said, this isn't really a reason why they were doomed from the start, because obviously no one knew this was going to be the matchup from the beginning of the season. But the second that playoff matchup was announced, I thought it was fairly obvious who was going to win due to how much of a mismatch it actually was going to be, and how hard the Bulls would have had to play, and how good they would have had to play on the offensive end, and they would have had to play above what they have been playing on defense all year for them to stand a chance, and that just was not the case, which is why they ended up losing in 5 games. But unfortunately, guys, that's my first video. So comment below, do you agree with me? Do you think the Bulls were doomed from the start? Do you think they need to change their roster? I want to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. And do you think that they would have been better if Lonzo Ball would have been there? And do you think they would have had more of a chance? I want to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. And I really am interested in what y'all have to say. And like I said earlier, if you like the video, point, hit the like button and subscribe button. It would mean the absolute world to me. And I hope you have a blessed day. Can I have a blessed day? So you can have a blessed day. All glory to God. See you in the next video. Goodbye. Boo. Blah.